Somewhere in America right now, there is a small, unassuming stone sitting in a drawer, a cigar box, a jewelry pouch, or an old collection inherited from someone long gone. It doesn't sparkle like a diamond, it doesn't scream wealth, and yet, if it's real, it could be worth thousands of dollars. A broken bar, sometimes far more. Most people would never suspect it. Most people already have thrown it away. And that's what makes this story so unsettling, because what if the rarest stone you've never heard of has already passed through your hands? What most people don't know is that one of the world's rarest gemstones isn't famous, isn't advertised, and isn't even recognized by most jewelers. Its name sounds obscure, almost forgettable. Jeremejevite. And that obscurity is exactly why so many people miss it. While collectors quietly compete for specimens behind closed doors, everyday families unknowingly let life-changing value slip through their fingers. The story of Jeremejevite doesn't begin in luxury showrooms or auction houses. It begins in isolation, in remote, harsh landscapes where few people ever look, and even fewer understand what they're seeing. This stone was first identified in the late 19th century. Hidden among mineral deposits that looked ordinary to the untrained eye. When it was finally recognized, it stunned the mineral world, not because it was flashy, but because it shouldn't have existed at all. Its chemical structure was unusual, its formation conditions were incredibly specific, and its natural occurrence was so rare that experts immediately realized this wasn't just another gemstone. This was something different. But here's where the story turns shocking. Even after its discovery, Jeremejevite didn't become famous. It didn't flood the market. It didn't get marketed to the public. Instead, it quietly disappeared into scientific collections, private mineral vaults, and a small circle of elite collectors who understood exactly what they were holding. The public never caught on, and that silence created an opportunity that still exists today. Years later, a retired engineer in the Midwest inherited a box of stones from his grandfather. Nothing special, or so he thought. The box had been sitting in a garage for decades. Dusty, forgotten. Inside were quartz pieces, rough crystals, and a few pale blue stones wrapped in yellowed paper. He nearly threw them out, almost did, but something stopped him. The color was unusual, not bright, not dull, just a broken bar different. He decided to have them looked at, expecting nothing. The first appraiser dismissed them immediately. Probably glass, he said. The second suggested low-value aquamarine, but the third paused, took a closer look, and then everything changed. Under magnification, the crystal structure didn't match aquamarine. The hardness didn't line up. The weight was slightly off. The color was too subtle, too pure. Tests followed. Days passed. Then the call came. One of those stones was natural Jeremejevite, facet grade, untreated, and worth more than the man's car. And this is the part collectors never talk about. Jeremejevite doesn't announce itself. It hides in plain sight. Its colors range from colorless to pale yellow, light blue, and sometimes a soft greenish tint. Nothing flashy, nothing dramatic. That's why it's missed. That's why it's misidentified. And that's why it still turns up in old collections, estate sales, inherited jewelry, and mineral boxes bought for pennies decades ago. To understand why this stone commands such attention among experts, you have to understand rarity on a different level. Diamonds are rare, but millions are mined every year. Emeralds, rubies, sapphires are rare, but widely known and actively sourced. Jeremejevite exists in quantities so small that even seasoned gem dealers may never see one in their lifetime. Fine gem quality specimens can be counted in the dozens, not thousands, and many of those are locked away, never to be sold. What makes Jeremejevite valuable isn't just scarcity, it's the combination of scarcity, durability, beauty, and scientific uniqueness. This stone has a hardness that makes it suitable for faceting, yet its crystal growth is so fragile that most specimens break before they ever become gems. When a clean, transparent crystal survives long enough to be cut, it becomes an event. Collectors notice, dealers whisper, prices jump. But here's where things get even more interesting. Jeremejevite has been historically confused with other stones. Aquamarine, topaz, quartz, even glass. Its refractive qualities are subtle, its brilliance is quiet. That's why identification matters so much. Real Jeremejevite often feels slightly heavier than it looks. Its crystal faces are sharply defined. Under light, it doesn't flash, it glows. And that glow is what experts recognize instantly. The rarest examples come from only a handful of locations on Earth. Early specimens were found in remote regions of Siberia. Later discoveries came from parts of Namibia, where a small pocket produced some of the finest gem-quality Jeremejevite ever recorded. And then, almost as quickly as it appeared, the supply vanished, mines closed, deposits exhausted, and no new major sources have been confirmed since. That's when prices began to climb, slowly at first, then suddenly. Low-quality, opaque pieces might sell for a few $100s as collector minerals, but clear, facetable stones, those enter a different world. Smaller cut stones can sell for several $1,000s per carat. Exceptional examples, with strong clarity and desirable color, have reached five-figure prices. And museum-quality specimens, those don't have price tags. They're negotiated privately, often quietly, sometimes never publicly disclosed. What most people don't realize is that Jeremejevite doesn't need to be mounted in jewelry to be valuable. In fact, many collectors prefer it unmounted, preserved in crystal form. That means stones sitting loose in boxes, jars, or old display cases could be far more valuable than anyone suspects, especially if they've never been treated, cut, or altered. And here's the dangerous part, because Jeremejevite isn't widely known, it's often undervalued or worse, discarded. Estate cleanouts, garage sales, antique stores, all places where rare stones have been lost forever. People assume that if something isn't famous, it isn't valuable. That assumption has cost families fortunes. The collector demand for Jeremejevite is growing, not shrinking. As high-end collectors look for assets that are portable, finite, and disconnected from traditional markets, rare gemstones rise to the top. Jeremejevite checks every box. It cannot be mass-produced, it cannot be synthetically replicated with ease, and its historical supply is effectively frozen. What exists today is almost all that will ever exist. This is why urgency matters. The market is heating up quietly, not loudly, not on television, but behind the scenes, at mineral shows, private auctions, and invitation-only sales. Once public awareness catches up, prices don't rise gradually, they spike, and the opportunity to discover one in the wild disappears. So how do you know if you might have one? Start with color. Pale blue, colorless, soft yellow, especially stones that don't quite match common gems. Look at clarity. Jeremejevite often appears unusually clean, with a glassy transparency that feels understated. Examine the shape. Natural crystals may look hexagonal or sharply terminated. Weight matters too. If a stone feels heavier than expected for its size, that's a clue. And origin matters. Stones acquired decades ago, especially from old mineral collections or travelers who visited Africa or Russia, deserve special attention. But never assume, and never toss. Identification requires professional testing, a refractive index, birefringence, and advanced analysis. A casual glance isn't enough. Many Jeremejevite stones have been mislabeled for years before someone finally looked closer. And that's the hope buried in this story. Somewhere out there, someone is holding one right now, They just don't know it yet. Someone inherited a stone and thought it was nothing. Someone bought a dusty box at an estate sale and hasn't opened it yet. Someone almost threw it away last week. This could be the stone that changes how you see what you already own. The reminder that value doesn't always shine brightly. Sometimes it waits quietly, patiently, until someone finally pays attention. Before you clean out that drawer, before you donate that old collection, before you dismiss the pale little stone as worthless, look again, because Jeremejevite doesn't give second chances. Once it's gone forever. And as the world of collectors continues to shift toward the rarest and most finite assets on Earth, stones like this are no longer curiosities. They're security, their history, their wealth hidden in plain sight. Check your stones, ask questions, get them examined. The next life-changing discovery doesn't always come from the future. Sometimes it's been sitting with you all along. And this story doesn't end here, because Jeremejevite is only one of many rare stones most people have never heard of. A broken bar yet. The next one may already be closer than you think.